Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1511B, and today's date is March 2nd, 2018, and the title of the episode is, Are the American People Being Played? If so, this will not end well. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Jeff Berwick. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. You can view it there, or you can go over to x22report.com or newssentinel.com, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the video right on the site, or you can go to Steemit, that is steemit.com/@x22report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Right now, the deep state, they are so backed into a corner that they are throwing everything out there to try to bring down the Trump administration. And we can see that they are pushing the agenda where there's turmoil in the White House. Morale is very, very low. People don't like being there. People are resigning. It's a disaster. Trump might as well just resign at this point. I mean, if you really look at it, this is what they're trying to do here. The reason why they're doing all of this is because the investigations are continuing. And there's more and more information being found out, and they realize it's only a matter of time. Think about what has happened since the event. Now, we talked about, and we said, if you go back to the other reports, we all talked about how there was going to be some type of an event, and I said between January and March. And I didn't believe that they would use the event they did, but they did use that event. And we can see right now they are not finished. They are getting ready for something new because you need to keep the momentum up. You need to keep the news cycles very, very busy with other news. And you need to put a lot of pressure on the Trump administration to keep everyone focused on that. You need to keep all eyes off of the investigations. Don't mention it, they don't exist. That's how they operate. We see Nunes is out there stating that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, may have violated numerous federal statutes in direct ignorance of the law in order to perpetuate their desires to bring down the president. And we see that as they dig further and further into everything, the Uranium One deal, the Clinton emails, the FISA, you can see that they're getting more information. Now, when Trump lashed out at Sessions, what I think was happening there, that he was getting frustrated, saying, it's time to move on this. And in not so many words, if Sessions can't do it, we need to find someone who will. Because all the evidence right now that you have, this should have started the investigation a long time ago. Look how they started an investigation on Russian collusion. There was not one piece of evidence that they could present to say, this is why we're investigating. They just did it. You know why? Because they had a fake dossier, and they just mentioned the word Russian collusion, and they kept repeating it over and over and over. And we all know it's completely fake, phony, and false. This is why you don't really hear about it anymore. They just kind of let it fall by the wayside, and you don't really hear about it, and it's gone. Now, McMaster's, he is a deep state operative working in the White House, and there are rumors right now that McMaster's is being pushed out of the Trump administration. And at this point, Trump needs, and those who are working with him, those patriots, need to make a move, because if he doesn't, and we get up to the midterm elections and we move forward, he's running out of time. If he can't take control of the entire situation right now and make headway, he has made some headway, and he has to play a lot of games, and I still think he's playing a lot of games. He needs to do something, because if he doesn't, he'll be stuck in this quagmire. He will not be able to do anything, and then he'll just fall in line with the rest of the presidents doing what the deep state wants. So we're at this point. This is a very crucial point that we are at right now. And I know QAnon keeps putting out coded messages saying we're fighting, there's no coincidences, and I believe there is no coincidences. They hear all, they see all. Well, if they do hear all and see all, take certain parts of the information and put something out there. Do something. And they need to do it because time is a factor. Now, I understand the deep state might do something if he tries to make that move. I mean, that would be my worry. You try to present something, the deep state, it's like a octopus where they're intertwined into every single department. They have people everywhere. They control the intelligence agencies. They control the corporate media. They control the social media outlets. Think about the control they have right now. They have YouTube channels censoring themselves right now. They're taking them down because they don't like what they're saying because it doesn't go along with their narratives. Think about what is happening right now. And it's right out in the open. It's not even like they're doing it behind the scenes like, oh, we just got rid of this one channel. They just went out and they're hitting the high-profile channels and just hitting them hard. And there's a reason for this. Is because just like the economy, where we're at the end stage here, it's the same thing with the deep state. They're losing ground in the Middle East. The petrodollar is doomed. They're trying to clean many of the individuals out inside of Washington. And believe me, there's many, many more. Don't think that's over. There's investigations going on. They realize they don't have that much time left. This is why we see an event. This is why we see the chaos. This is why we see all the corporate media reports coming out, reporting on all this. And this is why they're trying to make a link between North Korea and Syria. And they're trying to do whatever they possibly can to get something started. Now, North Korea was out there saying, this is absolutely ridiculous. They denied the reports that they are providing any type of chemical weapons to Syria. And North Korea said several times, our republic does not develop, produce, stockpile chemical weapons, and opposes chemical weapons themselves. And South Korea is sending an envoy to North Korea to talk about peace. They're working to get together, to have peace, and to bring the countries together. And at this point, the deep state can't allow this to happen. They can't have it happen. We see right now all over the corporate media, they're out there saying the White House announced that it would sell Ukraine the 210 Javelin anti-aircraft missiles, 37 launchers worth $47 million to Ukraine. And once again, they're saying the deal was made in December. Now, let's say it's all going through. Well, it has to go to Congress. Once the department says, okay, we're going to sell these, it goes to Congress. They have to prove it within 30 days. And then these weapons are sent over, and then most likely they'll be distributed to some other place. But let's say the reason why they're doing this is to start a war in Ukraine to take back the southeastern area and the Crimea area. Now, these are anti-tank weaponry, and these are supposed to be used against the Russian tanks. Now, the older T-72s, not a problem. But if they're going to go after Crimea, well, Russia's going to have the T-90s, the most advanced tank they make. And these Javelin anti-tank missile systems, well, they might not be effective on the T-90 tank. There were videos, and YouTube took them down already, where it showed that a lot of these anti-tank missile systems that were fired at the T-90 tank in Syria, well, they have technology to make the missiles veer off, and if it does hit the tank, well, they have multi-layers of armor where it doesn't damage the tank. Now, one of the missiles did hit the tank, but no one was injured inside, and the tank was still operational after it was hit. So at this point, I don't know if this is going to be a game changer. I think this was some type, if this story is true and this is actually happening, this might have been a deal that Trump made with the neocons. And he already knew from Putin that these missile systems would not have any effect whatsoever on their tanks. Remember when the missiles were fired into Syria? A lot of the missiles didn't even hit their targets. A lot of missiles dropped out of the sky, and that was that. The same thing with the drones that were headed towards Russia. Their troops, basically they were taken down electronically. Russia has the technology to stop all of these incoming missiles, drones, and all of these things and make them completely non-operational. And we could see right now that I don't think this is going to really be a game changer at this point. I don't think Ukraine is going to be able to invade anywhere. I think this was just a promise to get the tax reform, the tax bill passed, and they went ahead and said, listen, we'll give you this, but we know it's not going to do anything. And this is what they actually did. We see right now Trump prolongs the Russian sanctions, which are absolutely meaningless. He could have dropped them. He could have left them. These sanctions on individuals and certain countries are doing absolutely nothing to Russia, because when you bypass the dollar and you take all your investments, you take everything out of the dollar, you have no effect on it whatsoever. If you remove your wealth from the system, sanctions are absolutely meaningless. Russia, China have their own payment system. Russia, China, they trade using their own currency. It's almost like you saying, listen, I'm going to take my stuff out of the system. I'm going to put it into cryptocurrency. It's going to be an encrypted offline wallet. And guess what? The IRS and the rest would have a very difficult time trying to figure out where all this is, especially if this was off in another country. It's very, very difficult to track. And you could, take yourself off the entire system, just like those in Russia, those in other countries. Think about all the countries that had sanctions on them. Iran, Syria, Venezuela. Look, they're taking themselves out of the system. I mean, think about it. Cuba, for many, many years, they were able to survive the entire time. It didn't make them beg. It didn't bring them back to the U.S. It didn't do any of that. Sanctions don't work. Actually, Obama actually came out and said when he was removing the sanctions from Cuba that sanctions don't work. But they keep placing sanctions on, individuals and corporations and countries. Iraq is out there. The Iraqi parliament right now has passed a resolution this week thanking the U.S. and other friendly nations for their support in defeating the Islamic State. And now they want them all out. They want the timeline for the withdrawal of all foreign troops from the country. Now, again, the deep state's going to have a problem with this. They don't want to leave. So in Iraq, we might see the deep state pull off some type of an event to say this is why the U.S. needs to stay in Iraq. Now, Trump needs to come out and say, hey, we don't need to stay in Iraq, but we're going to have to see how this all goes, because he still does not have control over everything. He has certain control, but there are still deep state operatives that are intertwined within the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, and the rest. We see the propaganda, the U.S. propaganda, the deep state propaganda in Syria. Well, it's all breaking down. No one is believing the propaganda anymore. No one's believing the narrative about chemical weapons. No one's believing any of it, and it is completely failing. And we can see right now that Syria has signed contracts with Russia. We see Libya has signed contracts with China. For oil. We see everything that they've been pushing in the Middle East is completely and utterly falling apart right now. Governments now are separating themselves from the U.S., taking back their country and doing business elsewhere, which means eventually, which they were doing back before they were invaded, they will be moving to a different currency system where they will no longer use the petrodollar. They'll use a different currency, cryptocurrency, gold, whatever it's going to be, yuan, ruble, to pay for the oil. this is what they were doing before the United States came in, invaded the countries, had them go back to the petrodollar and control each and every one of these countries. Everything that they've done, the trillions of dollars that they spent, was a complete waste of money and time, and it wasn't for the benefit of the American people. It was the benefit to them. That's it. So whenever they tell us they're doing this for freedom, democracy, no. They're doing it for themselves, to keep control, to keep power, to keep their pockets filled with cash so they can buy real hard assets. That is what they are doing. Now, since this last event, we see a lot of things have been happening. They've been pushing the idea of gun control. Emotions are very high. And there's going to be a march, I believe, on March 4th, where they're going to be marching in D.C., and the gun grabbers are going to be asking for new laws. And we see that there are a lot of companies out there that are boycotting the NRA. I believe this is going to backfire just like the NFL, because there's millions and millions of people that understand the Second Amendment. They understand the rights. They understand that this is not a privilege, it is a right. And there's a reason why the Founding Fathers put the Second Amendment there, right after the First Amendment, which is the freedom of press, the freedom of speech, the right and the freedom to assemble. Now, the Second Amendment, it reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Now think about it. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. Not to bear a musket, not to bear a hunting rifle, but to bear arms. And all of it shall not be infringed upon. Now, the corporate media and everyone is going crazy on what Trump has said. And the reason I read the Second Amendment ahead of time was to link these two and why he was doing this. Now, remember, the emotions are running high right now. We just had an event. People are looking for something to be done. And of course, the focus is on guns. And this whole thing has nothing to do with guns. Because if it was a bomb, they wouldn't be saying, let's outlaw bombs, let's have rules against bombs. They'd be going after the person, saying that this person was crazy. If this person took a car and rammed into, 30, 40 people, they wouldn't put a ban on the steering wheel, the gas pedal, the brake, the car. It would be the person driving the car. This is why when someone is driving drunk, no one goes out and boycotts all the liquor stores and all the alcohol manufacturers. It was the person's fault. It's the person that commits the crime, not the inanimate objects. And basically what they've done here is they moved the narrative to make it about guns. And that's exactly what they're doing. And we can see they're going to continually push this. Now, Trump was out there and he's saying, okay, we're looking at changing the age from 18 to 21. We're looking to maybe ban bump stocks. We're looking to have some type of law. And he said, maybe we should just take the weapons away and have due process later on. Now, think about what he's doing here. If he came out and he said, listen, I'm sticking to the Second Amendment. Everyone has a right to a weapon, and there's nothing you can do about it. What would the corporate media do? What would the people do? They would gin this up. There would be riots. It would be craziness. Think about it. That's exactly what they would have done. With him coming, and he's done this before, where he has gone along with the corporate media, because once you go along with them, it's a game that is played over and over and over. When you go along with them and you diffuse their whole entire push, when he says, okay, we'll make bump stocks illegal. Okay, we will change the age. This is what you wanted. Okay, we'll just take the weapons away and then we'll have due process later because this makes sense. Now, the reason why he's doing all this is he wants the everyday American person to hear it. How crazy it really sounds. Think about it for a second. The corporate media was out there pushing it. We're out there saying this is craziness. Now, the alternative media is getting larger, but it's still a small group. The rest of the country is hearing this because a lot of them don't hear the alternative media, and if they did, we'd have millions and millions of people, millions of views on each one of the videos. But they're hearing this, saying this is craziness. We don't want this. Trump is trying to grab guns. Well, I'm going to tell you what he's going to do. He's going to back away from all of this. He's doing it to get people moving, to get people saying this makes no sense. What are you doing? And this is why he said respect the Second Amendment. Now, let's take the other side here. I'm completely wrong. Just like when he fired the missiles into Syria, everyone said we were going to war. Let's say I'm completely wrong and he wants to grab all the guns. That's what he's going to do. Well, again, that means we're being played. This whole entire time, everything that he's done, everything that he's going to try to do, was all fake. He played all of us, the American people. And he's falling in line with the deep state. And the corporate media is going to start loving him. And they're not going to try to remove him. They're going to keep him there. They're going to stop all the investigations. Mueller's going to quit. And everything is going to be all done. And the deep state is back in power. They push forward the UN Arms Treaty. They remove our rights. Everything's all said and done. I think what he's doing right now is he's calling out to the everyday American person. He wants them to hear how crazy it is. He's saying it out loud. Let's take away the weapons and use due process later. I know the corporate media is making it seem like he's a moron. He's a bumbling oaf who just says these things. That's not what he's doing. He's playing them. He's using their words. This is what they want. And he wants everyone to hear it in a very simplistic way to understand what they're trying to do. He's trying to get everyone angry to push and make a move and get everyone on the side of what he's trying to do and what we want him to do. That's what I'm getting out of this. Just like back in Syria, when he was firing the missiles, when everyone thought we were invading Syria, we were invading Libya, we were invading Iraq, we're invading everywhere. It didn't happen. Think about what happened in Syria after those missiles were fired. No troops went in there. Actually, he cut the funding to the moderate rebels, to the Syrian Democratic Forces. He stopped the training programs. The funding to the Kurds came to an end. He had phone calls with Putin. And look at it today. He had the Pentagon take control of the targets so they could hit the Islamic State. When Obama was president, Obama had the control of what targets were going to be hit in Syria. He reversed that. And the Islamic State is gone. The Kurds are asking for the Syrian government help, saying that they're part of Syria. The deep state is finished in Syria. Iraq right now is saying, okay, listen, we don't need you here anymore. Get out. No new wars are being forced in these areas. Actually, they're coming to an end. North Korea, with all the talk of we have a bigger nuclear button than Kim Jong-un, in the background, when it was all said and done, when the Olympics were coming up, there was the freeze plan. The United States had no more drills. North Korea did not fire a missile, did not test a nuclear weapon. It's exactly what Russia and China wanted. And that's exactly what they did. South Korea, well, now they're in continued talks together to have peace. So all this war talk is not there. Yes, the deep state would like a war, but it's not happening. And I believe this is the same thing that is happening with the gun debate. I think what he's doing is playing into the corporate media. I think he's sending this message out, and I see it all over the place. People are saying, this is craziness. Why would we have this? Why would we take the weapons away and then have due process? This is not how our system works. This is going against everything, our rights and everything. He's out there showing everyone what the deep state really wants. And he's leaving it up to Congress to come up with some type of gun legislation. Do you really think they're going to be able to agree on this? Think about it for a second. Most likely not. Most likely it'll get stalled down, bogged down in Congress, and it will never go anywhere because both sides will never agree on anything because they're on opposite sides here completely. I mean, look how it worked with Obamacare. They couldn't even decide on that. So, once again, on one hand, are we being played? Well, time will tell once again. The other hand, I think he's still pushing and trying to weed out as many of the deep state as possible and bring the investigations to the forefront. The deep state is trying to stop all of this. At the same time, the economy is coming down all at once. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.